Outside of playing a ton of Metaphor ReFantazio, currently set as my game of the year for 2024, I've been playing Metroid Dread again and getting back into the Metroid mindset, getting ready for Nintendo's eventual blowout of Metroid Prime 4 when it comes to information, release date, gameplay, because that is going to be one of the biggest games of 2025, and in my opinion, it is set to do the impossible that we could not see for the Metroid franchise, that I think that will stretch beyond what Metroid Dread, a 2D Metroid game, is capable of. But before we get into all that, what's good everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell for all of my Nintendo Switch RPG videos, live streams, and more first. And let's go ahead and jump right into this. So over the course of this video, we're going to go over a number of things that I think that Metroid Prime 4 can prove when it comes to how capable Retro Studios is going to be for this franchise going forward in the future. Because I do think that Metroid Prime 4 has a lot to prove, and it's going to do some things that nobody really felt that it could do. Now, getting back to the basics here, Metroid Dread, 3 million units sold, best-selling Metroid game of all time, one of the better-selling, if not best, Metroidvania outside of Ori and the Blind Forest, Will of the Wisps, like you can count those games. But when it comes to major Metroidvania type of games, or that style that kind of copied from what Metroid was doing, they all kind of group them together at this point. 3 million is incredibly good. It's really good for that type of game, but can the Metroid franchise do better than that? Can the Metroid franchise grow like we've seen with other franchises when it comes to 3D Mario, when it comes to The Legend of Zelda, when it comes to Xenoblade? There's been many other franchises, even Fire Emblem, that have grown way past what they've done before. I think the first step, Metroid Dread, 3 million, fantastic. Before that, the previous record holder was Metroid Prime at right about 3 million, a bit under it if you don't count all the re-releases and compilations and different downloads and stuff like that. So that's right where the Metroid franchise hovers around, right around 2 million to 3 million or so. Can Metroid Prime 4 Beyond go beyond when it comes to 3 million and get to that 4 million? 5 million and become a bigger franchise? Now, I'll say this, some people think that it might be impossible for this to happen, but remember where the Zelda franchise was about 10 years ago or so. We were looking at The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword and those sales. We were looking at potentially Twilight Princess being the best-selling one, Ocarina of Time hovering right around 7 million to 10 million, somewhere in that range, and that was the limit. That was the top for The Legend of Zelda, and then bam, out of nowhere, here comes The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it's 30 plus million overall. Tears of the Kingdom, 20 million. 50 million plus between two games in this generation on the Nintendo Switch, with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom pretty much surpassing all of the mainline Zelda games even combined overall. So it is not impossible that Metroid Prime 4 truly takes the franchise and brings it to new heights. Now, I don't think that overall when it comes to how people see Metroid Prime 4 that it's going to have that impact that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild had. You have to look at it, guys. It's a brand new system with the Nintendo Switch, a new concept for Nintendo, the hybrid nature. There was a lot of things that led into that. And The Legend of Zelda is just a more popular franchise overall. And I think that it's pretty much always going to be more popular than Metroid. So we can't expect Metroid Prime 4, which looks to be a taking of Metroid Prime. From what we know, I think that there's going to be some other things that's going to shake things up a lot with this game, but they're looking to probably advance what we saw with Metroid Prime. Take that base and really turn it into something way bigger and better. So I'm not expecting it to be some type of trailblazing game like we saw with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. However, I do think sales-wise, it could be way better than anything that we've seen before. You've got to remember here, Metroid Dread launched in a very good atmosphere for Nintendo. It was back in 2021. We had the Nintendo Switch OLED come out. Nintendo was really doing well after that crazy pandemic year. Animal Crossing boosting sales to astronomical levels, and that continued on with Metroid Dread, and it really benefited overall, selling that 3 million plus in about a year. So that was really good. Now, if you look at it, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, it's going to have a lot of things going for it as well. It's going to have the huge install base of the Nintendo Switch. We're seeing 140 million plus, probably going to be 150 million plus by the time that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond comes out. And if you look at it, look at the Nintendo Switch 2. There could be a dual launch. There could be an enhanced version. There could be something else. People might want to play it backwards compatible. There are a lot of things that can help boost Metroid Prime 4 to new heights, and to do that impossible that many people feel the Metroid franchise cannot do. So I'm very excited to see how that's going to go. You also have to look at it this way. One of the big things with Metroid Dread that I think really helped boost the sales as well was how quality the game was. The Game of the Year considerations, heck, Game of the Year for some people, and in the Jeff Keighley Game of the Year as well, there were many people who went out there and said, okay, I'm going to give it a shot. Never played it, not into Metroid, but it looks awesome. It's got this consideration here. That's in front of a lot of people overall that like that more grittier type of game. So I think Metroid Dread was exposed to way more people. Then you had some of the DLC, you had some of the other things that they did as well. There was a demo that they did, and I think that that helped all boost the profile of Metroid Dread to have these record-breaking sales. And heck, who knows? We don't know where it's at this point. We're on the second anniversary plus of the game overall, and it's probably a bit above that right now at this point. So I truly feel that Metroid Prime 4, with Metroid Prime being a game that actually sold better than all the 2D Metroids, this has a chance if it has Game of the Year considerations, if it is that 90 plus that we've seen before for the Metroid Prime series. I think that that can really help it do the impossible as well. Now, one thing that you have to note too, you look back, right, at the reviewers that reviewed Metroid Prime Remastered, and that game's old at this point. That was an early 2000s game, but they still heralded it for it being great, it being awesome, and still having all these different things that make gaming fun, considering how old it is. So that style and that gameplay still works in today's day. So that's something that Metroid Prime 4 has going for it. You make some modern accommodations to it, you add in some extra different things that gamers are expecting now. At this point, obviously you enhance the graphics and everything. You could have another 93, 94, maybe even 95 plus rated game overall if the story and everything really comes together, because Metroid Prime story, you see it there, but it's kind of like a bit muted, right? So if they even enhance it, which it looks like they're doing here with Silas and what they're doing overall, man, it really could end up being a Game of the Year type of game. And I think that, yeah, Metroid Prime has been there before. It's won it before we had the Keighley Awards and all that. People did give Metroid Prime the Game of the Year. People did have considerations for Metroid Prime 2 and Metroid Prime 3 for Game of the Year as well. So Metroid has a high bar and the quality is very high. They're taking their time with this one. So I do feel that Game of the Year considerations, and that's all going to play a part into this doing the impossible and selling this for 5 million units plus and being back when it comes to the Metroid franchise, well, at least the 3D Prime franchise here. So multiplayer options, this is something that people always talk about as well that could help it do a bit more or not. If it has incredible multiplayer, will it sell better than if it doesn't? And I do think that the biggest thing for Metroid, first and foremost, is making sure that the single player is the highest of quality. That needs to be the absolute focus. Make the single player good, and not like 5 hours or 3 hours or anything like that. Make it a solid, chunky single player campaign to where it does take a bit of time to go through, but without some of the annoying things that happened before in the past. I want them to really flesh out the content. Metroid Prime 3, for example, that had some great stuff added into there in terms of single player content overall, and really flesh that out and make it awesome. Make it really good. Make it to where people want to go back and play. Make it addicting. Make it to where it's like, yeah, I want to go in there and collect resources, or I want to go in there and get different things, get different abilities. Make it to where it has that, okay, just one more mission, one more hour, that type of thing. And if they do that overall, and if they could nail that with the single player and it's enough, then yes, add in the multiplayer. Now, if they were going to do multiplayer, it's already in at this point. I don't think it's something that they're going to add in later unless it's something that's just tacked on local like they did with Metroid Prime 2, which I'm not sure if it's even worth wasting time with that. So not really sure, but they've shown that they've been able to do Metroid multiplayer well with the DS game and everything. So I'm hoping that the single player is all done, all good, and it gives them plenty of time, if they're going to do multiplayer, to make something actually compelling online. And I will say this, if you look at the timing here, Nintendo's new servers, what's going on with the Nintendo NSO playtest that's happening, I'm not going to talk about exactly what's going on, but it does seem like Nintendo is testing out some mass servers, faster speeds, different type of things that are going on there, and it looks like it's doing pretty well based off of potentially some some things that are being said online. So that can also factor in to how Nintendo handles or what Nintendo does for multiplayer, especially for these fast Twitch games where you need instant reactions, you need instant shooting and playing and everything. And people have complained about some of the multiplayer, I would say, robustness in the past when it comes to Nintendo's multiplayer stuff. They've done an okay job. I think stuff like Splatoon and ARMS and other games are pretty good when it comes to multiplayer options, but there is room to improve. And I think that's what this new game / playtest is helping to do, so Nintendo can hit the ground running with the Nintendo Switch 2 and with the Nintendo Switch as well, because I think that they're going to be still supporting some of the other games. And maybe, just maybe, Metroid Prime 4 factors into their plans with that moving forward. So I do think that there's one last thing to kind of really go through here. This story needs to move forward. The Metroid franchise needs to be set up, needs to be set up for sequels, needs to be set up to do well. And I think that this is going to be the game that truly gets that going, because we're heading into this new generation. We need something to really end it out and say, okay, this is going to be the spark for the Prime series. We haven't had that. Remember, the last Metroid Prime game that we got that was actually new was Metroid Prime Federation Force, which was... it was a thing, right? So that was the last time that we had that. Metroid Prime Remastered is a remaster from the early 2000s. So there hasn't been anything to move it forward. We need this game to really come out and do something, move units, and be good, so the Metroid Prime series can continue and be successful. Remember, the last time that we had a really big game of the year type of game that sold well and everything, look at what happened. Metroid Prime Original, right? We got Metroid Prime 2, we got Metroid Prime 3, and it set up that whole generation plus one more when it comes to Metroid Prime 3 on the Wii back in 2007. So if this game, Metroid Prime 4, can come out and do something incredible and sell good enough and review really well, it can set up another 2-3 games in the future so they can continue building upon what this game does. But I am excited, man. I am ready to see exactly what they're going to do with this game. Now, I do think that the setting, the features, the options, all of that is going to play a part into this in terms of turning some people's minds that are not quite sure about Metroid and its financial sustainability and turning that around. I think that the biggest thing is that any of these games overall, Metroid included, can be something that does bigger and better. It's just about putting together the right marketing package, the right gameplay, and the right system or systems in order to drive that forward. The Nintendo Switch was the perfect system for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild at the time. Kind of putting behind the Wii U, putting behind the Nintendo 3DS, and having this huge Zelda experience that you can take anywhere that you want. That was something where the hardware and the software work so good together, because you have all of these options of what you can do, and sometimes there's just not enough time in the day. But if you can take that experience anywhere that you want, you can create more time. Will Metroid Prime 4, can it do something similar with the new hardware coming out, maybe with the multiplayer NSO servers, whatever the case is, combined with what it already does really well with the Metroid series, to create something that is irresistible for players out there, especially if it launches early in the life of the Nintendo Switch 2, to where it can really be something to where people give it a shot, try it out, because there isn't as much competition with other first-party games and other stuff out there. Because the more that the system's on the market, the more games come out, the more competitive it is overall. But if you have something kind of early, it gives people not as many options, so they might be more willing to try something out, and that could blow up a franchise. We've seen it before many times. So what do you guys think overall about what I think with Metroid Prime 4 potentially set to do the impossible? We're going to have to revisit this topic later down the line in 2025 and see if it actually does that leading up to it when it comes to the promotions and the sales and the marketing and all that other stuff that really makes gaming fun at times. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.